Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to One Akata Nation News Hour with your man about town, Petty Murphy, reporting to you live from the back of the classroom here at Akata News Network. Today, we'll be checking with our correspondent on the field plantation, Nap Turner, and he's going to have an expose on how the federal government and them people study the psychology of a Negro to separate you from your hard-earned money. And with that, we'll get over with some breaking news. Here, what's cracking? So yeah, we're gonna actually start off today. Matter of fact, you know what? I'm gonna do this. We're gonna start off today with about a couple of clips, and then after that, we're gonna deep dive into a documentary by the United States Department of Commerce that was produced in 1954 by the name of The Psychology of How to Sell to a Negro. All right, we're gonna drop down, and then after finishing that, we'll spin the block. We're going to talk about it.
And the black community feels left behind because a lot of these people are, they could use some of that tax money in Chicago to help them.
Just basically made it, both parties have paid, especially Democratic Party, a lot of attention to what black voters want because they're a huge part of the Democratic coalition. And now that's not true. Anyone who says, it's just white racism is, what is your average black person in Chicago, native born, family been here 300 years? What does he think of watching his city overwhelmed with illegal aliens?
Are getting massive amounts of care, right? Free hotel room, 3 square meals a day, free medical care. And the black community feels left behind because a lot of these people are, they could use some of that tax money in Chicago to help them. They're taxpayers. They should have the first chance to get some of that help. But the mayor of Chicago just, he's ignoring his own community. And I was up there just over a week ago, and I met with hundreds of people that were up there, and they're suffering because of the decisions to take care of these illegal aliens. I mean, I saw city transit buses parked running fuel as warming buses. How about taking care of the homeless people in that city? But, they'd rather put these illegal aliens in a hotel room at $500 a night in the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City and give them 3 meals a day and give them free medical care rather than take care of their own people.
So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No, because whatever benefits that black family will benefit that community and society as a whole in the country.
Many whites who are trying to solve the problem, but you never see them going under the label of liberals. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox, and a fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to. But the fox will fool you. He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling. You take him for a friend.
Draw false equivalence. What is happening here is not the same as what happened during the Trump administration, where they took babies out of the arms of their mothers and deported their families and permanently traumatize these children, some of whom we don't know will ever be reunified with their family again, which is a level of human rights violation that is just simply not the same. Both of these things are barbaric and they're wrong. But when you rip a baby out of the hands of a mother, you cannot draw the same comparison. And anyone who is trying to do that is doing a profound disservice to the cause of justice. So I don't want to excuse any of this, but I don't think we should also get them twisted together, because one is not the same. And we cannot dust that under the rug. And by the way, those families are owed reparations, period. Now I'll move on and continue on this issue.
Yeah, y'all keep fucking with them liberals. They don't give a fuck about you. Even the ones that look like you don't give a fuck about you. We've been here for how many hundreds of motherfucking years? Work to the bone, still get treated like shit. And this bitch gonna tell us we don't deserve reparations, but motherfuckers coming over the border do. Make it make sense. God bless America.
Now be sure that it comes over here. Follow me over with the boom.
Well, move that over there. Why don't you give it my
You got the level on that, Joe?
Hey, how's this video coming through?
Are the lights hot enough?
Don't forget the dolly and close.
All right, be sure and stay clear of number 2 camera, and all set. Stand by.
Hello, I'm Bob Trout. I've got a story here that I think is big, really big, because it's bound to have a terrific impact on business. I'm talking about a new market, a big new market, millions upon millions of new prospects with $15 billion to spend. That's right, I said $15 billion. That's a lot of money, isn't it? The surprising thing is that it's a fresh market, still full of opportunities. It grew up so fast, got so big in a hurry, that few of us realize its scope. Now, these days, nobody's likely to pass up chances to sell. And yet right here in our own front yard, there's a neglected market. There's money waiting to be spent. To get the story...
All right, I actually paused the video there because there was just a few points that I wanted to bring up just to give a little perspective on what's actually being said here. Now, I want everyone to keep in mind, this documentary was created by the Department of Commerce in 1954. So what you're hearing is that in 1954, the United States government conducted a study on the foundational Black American population, or AKA ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, also known as the Solana. And what they were able to determine is that we were an untapped market. Why? Because in 1954, we were already generating $15 billion per year of GDP. Now, just to give you a little perspective on how that actually measures up, because of everything going on right now in American society and what's happening now with the fraud that was found out in Minnesota, currently it's estimated that Somali Americans generate about around $8 billion per year currently in the 2020s. So that's just a little bit of perspective on exactly how much money we were generating just in 1954. So you speed that up now into 2025, and it's in the trillions. But we'll get back to the rest of the documentary.
market, to be able to tell you the secret of selling the Negro, we did a lot of digging. We talked to leading businessmen, to customers, and to salesmen. We went to Washington, D.C. We set up cameras and other key points around the nation. And out of this all, there emerged a story, the story of a new market. Yes, this is the market we're talking about, the new Negro family. Their name is Wells or Wilson, Smith or Brown or Alexander or Breen. They live in Chicago, in Atlanta or New York, in Detroit, St. Louis, Los Angeles, any one of 1,000 cities and towns. All over the country, families such as this are enjoying new prosperity. They have new interests, new standards of living, a buying power they've never enjoyed before. They're good prospects for practically all types of goods and services. All too often, though, they're overlooked prospects. Why? Because of some good, valid reason? No. They're overlooked because of mistaken ideas, because of out-of-date ideas about how the Negro lives and how he buys. The truth of the matter is that the Negro...
You know, it's funny. They say that all of that was a culmination of mistaken ideals or beliefs. Well, if you pay attention now, again, to what's going on, and a lot of it has to do with some of the actions that we took, like supporting the Immigration Act of 1965. But a lot of those dangerous ideas and beliefs that, like, we have no culture, or we don't know who our fathers are, or we don't like to work hard, are still prevalent in society, but now they're coming in from foreign nationals that are coming in amongst and living within our communities, who are still exposing these exact same ideals as I make this video right now.
Lives pretty much the same as other folks. He buys pretty much the same way, too. But just the same, a lot of old doubts and opinions keep cropping up over and over again.
I don't like to do business with Negroes. They're drifters. You can't keep track of them.
Yes, although a lot of people think that way, the truth is that 1 out of every 3 Negro families living in cities today owns its own home. That figure comes directly from the United States Bureau of Census.
Maybe.
Now, I stop again because perspective. Now, that's a very important figure there that you just heard. Keep in mind, this was 1954. So if in 1954, 3 out of every 4 households in America that were owned by foundational Black Americans were actually outright owned by them, think about that and let it sink in. In 1954, 3 out of every 4 foundational Black American households were owned by those individuals outright. Really let that sink in. 3 out of 4 Black Americans were homeowners in 1954. Segregation was officially ended in 1964, which means that was 10 years later. So if we were able to amass this type of GDP and 3 out of every 4 families owned their home, and pretty much by extension the land that it was on, what is that telling you was actually going on during segregation? Go back and look at the historical record and see what we actually had control of during the time of segregation. We had our own banks, our own car lots, our own schools, our own post offices, our own hospitals, our own everything. We had our own bus companies, our own cabs. Everything that we needed to be literally self-sufficient as a nation within a nation, we had. Our own public transportation. We had all complete infrastructure. We had our own banks. We had everything. And we gave it all up after integration. And the main reason that integration really happened, which is what you're going to actually start to find out, was because if 3 out of 4 of each of our households was owned by us, somebody wanted a piece of that pie. Because if you look at the numbers now, and what else is crazy is if in 1964, integration officially ended, and then in 1965 was the Immigration Act, and then they started taking the federal funding from within our communities and giving it to the immigrants and aid all over the world, as they systematically used predatory lending to strip us away from our property. And then the Democratic Party then in turn extended our birthright, the 14th Amendment that you now Ilhan Omar claim she's protected under, to foreign nationals and immigrants. But people are mad because someone else is saying that that was only meant for the descendants of slaves. And the fact that those of us that are descendants that 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment were written for are fine with the Democrats just extending it to anyone and everyone else in the world when they come here and carry the exact ideals that were held about us in the 50s and the 60s by the so-called oppressor, right? Then why are we protecting these people now? And we know the type of fraud that they're committing in our communities. But let me stay on track. Let's get back to the documentary. Got about maybe 15 more minutes to go.
But Negroes are poor credit risks.
not more of a credit risk than any other group. Actually, the Negro home buyer meets his payments faithfully, often more faithfully than other race groups in the same economic level. That's the information we got from people who ought to know, the National Association of Real Estate Boards.
Well, maybe, but I've always heard that Negroes buy shoddy, poor quality merchandise.
No, it's just the other way around. According to leading researchers, in proportion to population and income, Negroes buy more quality products than any other comparable United States group.
We all quickly knew that was a lie because everybody know how much we love to get fly. And the fact of the matter is that every style, damn near every style, every music genre, clothes, hair, music, the way we dress it, the way we put it on, throw it together. I don't care what it is. The way we speak it, the way we drop it, drip it, everything is literally comes from us. Everything that influences popular culture was created by Black Americans. Jazz, hip hop, soul, R&B. I mean, even when you listen to what's the junk? The White Cats play it. Country and Western. That ain't nothing but white man's rhythm and blues. My baby left me, getting drunk, mad because his woman cheating and all that. That is old school rhythm and blues, straight up and down. But anyways, my point is this. Nothing about us has ever been cheap. Even when you go through the historical record and you see what we've been doing through civilization, we've always adorned ourselves with precious metals. Why? Because they conduct electricity. It wasn't just about the aspect of getting fly to get fly. It was what those things actually did for us and interacting with our realm. But I'll digress on that because that's a whole nother topic. But let's get back to this.
You see, there are a lot of confused notions about the Negro customer. But when you dig right down and find out about them, they just don't hold water. Negroes own homes. They meet their payments faithfully. They buy good brands of merchandise. So why let a lot of old-fashioned ideas hurt profits? Take a look at the real facts. Here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, some amazing facts and figures about this new market have been uncovered. For a first-hand report, we would like to take you directly to the United States Department of Commerce to hear this story from the Secretary of Commerce himself. Here is the Honorable Sinclair Weeks, the Secretary of Commerce of the United States.
In the Department of Commerce, we are constantly alert to trends that mean a healthier national economy, better business for the nation as a whole. Recently, we have been interested in a rising young market, one that represents a huge potential for goods and services. I'm referring to the new Negro market. The tremendous buying power of this group is backed, of course, by an increased earning power. The average Negro family's income is at a record high. In fact, since 1939, it has increased more than the average income of all other Americans. Just take a look at a few figures. An official Department of Commerce report shows that at least 1/3 of the Negroes living in cities earn from $2,000 to $5,000 a year. Today, the average Negro wage earner brings home a paycheck 4 times larger than the one he collected in 1939. As a whole, the Negro market has a total income of about $15 billion every year. And after taxes, Negro families still have many billions of dollars to spend. Here is a buying power that cannot help but have a tremendous effect on our national economy and on business prosperity in general. When these dollars are spent for a wide range of goods, services, and employment, business everywhere is bound to feel the impact.
This new buying power has resulted in a class Negro market, a profitable, above-average income group of consumers. For example, the nation's largest newspaper and magazine research organization, Daniel Starch and Staff, reports these significant figures. More than 51% of the readers of Ebony magazine have a record player in their homes. Almost 64% own a television set. and almost 78% enjoy the convenience of an electric refrigerator. It is also a fact, and this is from the magazine The Food Field Reporter, that Negroes spend almost $3 billion a year for food alone. Per capita, they buy more cosmetics, drugs, and toiletries than anyone else in the country. And their children are better educated, too, because since 1930, enrollment in Negro...
So back in 1954, they already spent, at that point, we were spending $3 billion a year just on food. We were the number one consumer of beauty and healthcare products, which means there was a whole lot of people in the population that wasn't washing their ass properly. But we're going to leave that alone. But my point is this, right? It's not that we don't have access to the resources, like the way that all these, or we'll use Somalia again, for example. 88% of Somalian American immigrants are on public assistance. 88% of their population. We have nowhere near that. And with the amount of GDP that we actually generate, if using properly, if we created an infrastructure and started creating to build for ourselves, to buy from ourselves, just like the Department of Commerce in the United States federal government literally did studies to actually find out what our idiosyncrasies were and to figure out what microaggressions would and would not work and how our psychology works when they want to sell to us. Like, they knew that we didn't like shoddy products and only wanted quality. This way they knew they could upcharge us and literally beat us in the head because we would pay the extra for name brand because we didn't want anything to fall apart opposed to what we were used to in the past. But we live in an era where we can now control the stores in our community. We can now actually set up relationships with vendors and buy the things that we consume in bulk and then sell them to the individuals within our community and keep that dollar floating within the community sevenfold like every other group does. We have absolutely no excuses. I had a conversation with someone last night very dear to me, and it actually hurt me because they said that, because if you think about it, if 3 out of every 4 Black families own their homes in the land that was on in 1954, that means we're moving backwards. And if we're moving backwards and we've created the legislation that we have, that means because we're doing something wrong. And if we continue to vote for the same people who are flooding our communities with illegal immigrants and then taking and siphoning all the tax dollars out of our communities. Think of all the after school programs and things that have been taken from our children over the years, but that money has been redirected to USAID, to NGOs, and given to, over the last 4 years, illegal immigrants. I live in New York City, and in New York City alone, we spent $7 trillion. $7 trillion was that price tag for what we went through for housing, feeding, and clothing people that were setting women on fire on subway trains, assaulting young female children in the worst of the way. I've already shown the receipts before, but this is where we at. We don't really have to be here. But we've gotten so caught up in our home ain't shit and actively saying that it's almost like it's what it's turning out to be. We as birthright citizens, I want everyone to stop for a minute and really think, right? If you see what Ilhan Omar is now saying, that she's trying to invoke the 14th Amendment, which was created for Black Americans, is why she can't be deported as a naturalized citizen. But we as birthright citizens, everyone that is a birthright citizen and has more than 5 generations deep in this country, 5 or 6, anyone that goes past the incorporation of the United States of America in 1914, before they actually started importing the first European immigrants, which they imported 50 million over, 12 million over a 50-year period, which oddly enough ended in 1964. And then in 1965, they started immigrating individuals from the third world after we fought for that with the 1965 Civil Rights Act. So we went for a 50-year spread from 1915 to 1964, and then we're on one right now. And if you look at what really happened, the United States of America became a corporation, so they're not immigrants. They're importing their employees. They are citizens on the ship under maritime law. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked here, and I'm sorry. I apologize. But we have to take some responsibility for what we've helped create. And like I say now, if you look around, as birthright citizens, pretty much all birthright citizens right now can't agree on anything to actually stand on and protect what is rightfully ours, and that's our birthright. And if we don't tighten up real fast, we're going to lose it, because if the naturalized citizens and their illegal brethren wanted to take over right now, most of the birthright citizen population are so much at odds, arguing and fighting over shit like race and politics and everything else, that we would be so disorganized and so disconnected that they just might try and wipe us off this motherfucking map. This is why I say it again, and I'm going to say it. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. If there's ever been a time to lock in and really know who your neighbors are and start creating that community that we all grew up with, where everybody knew everyone in the neighborhood, it's all the individuals that have that blue passport like you do. It's all the individuals that have multiple generations down in their family tree, just like you do. This is our home, and we have a responsibility and an obligation to protect it from all enemies, foreign and domestic. But let's get back to the documentary. I'm getting a little out of there. My apologies again.
Is up 2,500%. But really, to recognize the importance of this class Negro market, we must realize that something has been happening economically in our country. People are on the move. The population is shifting. The makeup of metropolitan populations today is different than it was just a few short years ago. To give you a better idea of what we mean, we set up several cameras, candid cameras, in a number of shopping locations. Take a look at these shoppers. Notice what a large proportion of them are Negroes. What's the reason? It's simply this. Negro families are moving into the cities where there are more job opportunities. Here they find occupations with more prestige and security, jobs that pay more money. As a result, Negro families today often make up the largest part of central city consumer prospects. A shoe store in Chicago's Loop, for example, reports that more than 50% of its customers are Negroes. In another case, a drugstore located at a transfer point in a non-Negro neighborhood finds that its Negro customers total 25%. The trend is plain. The new Negro families today are moving into more populated areas, to the cities, where there are more stores, more buying opportunities. Since 1940, in San Francisco alone, the Negro market has increased by 89%. In Chicago by 81%. Houston, Texas, 45%. Philadelphia, 50%. The impact of this new buying force is so tremendous that actually in 14 major United States markets, a product cannot be number one without Negro support. A product must have the backing of this big new buying power to be a leader in the field. What do you have to sell? Chewing gum or cars? Toothpaste or transportation? Whatever it is, here are millions of prospects. And these prospects are everywhere. Negro customers can no longer be pigeonholed. They cannot be classified as prospects who trade only in certain stores, certain neighborhoods. Today, Negroes shop downtown. They shop in supermarkets. They shop in small neighborhood stores. They'll buy from anyone who wants to sell to them. But we all know that before you can sell to customers, you've got to get to know them. You must understand something about them. What do the Negro customers buy? Why do they buy? How do you sell to them? Let's find out. Let's hear the opinion of men who have spent a lifetime studying the buying habits of customers the world over. Here is what sales psychologists have to say about selling to the Negro.
The secret of selling to the Negro is expressed in one word. That word is recognition. Now, there's nothing unusual about that. People want to be recognized. They need recognition. That's basic in all of us. But perhaps because he's had so little of it, the Negro needs even more. He needs to feel important and appreciated. This need is a very real and important one. It shows up even in many of the Negro's shopping habits. Anyone who sells or wants to sell to the Negro customer should know about some of these habits. 3 habits in particular play a big part in every sales transaction. To begin with, most Negroes buy by brand. They ask for products by name. They're quick to turn down off-brands. Do you wonder why? Well, listen to what this customer is thinking.
That last hat I bought just didn't hold up at all.
You see, for a long time, the Negro has been sold a lot of shoddy, second-class merchandise. So now he asks for name brands in order to make sure he gets his money's worth. Buying by brand, that's the first important Negro buying habit. Now for the second. The Negro buys good quality merchandise. Symbols of quality and prestige are very important to the Negro customer. This woman, for example, is buying fine crystalware. But she is also buying the admiration and approval of her friends and relatives. Listen to her thoughts.
My, isn't it beautiful? I can hardly wait to show it to Sally and Joan.
It's a well-known fact that many Negro customers are influenced by the opinions of others. What their friends may think of a certain item often decides whether or not the sale is made. So remember, the Negro buys quality merchandise. That's the second important point. And here's the third thing to remember when selling to a Negro customer. When he specifically asks for one thing, don't try to sell him something else. Don't try to switch him at the point of sale. If you do, he'll probably react something like this.
Doesn't he think I've got the money to pay for it?
There's a reason for this reaction. Again, because he's had experience with cheap merchandise, the Negro resents being offered a substitute. He wants to be sold on quality, not price. The Negro buys by brand, he buys quality, and he doesn't like to be switched at point of sale. These are the keys to selling the Negro customer. Another point. The Negro family does things together, as a group. The family works as a unit. It lives as a unit, and it buys as a unit. When you sell to one member, you many times sell to all. It's also true that many places of entertainment are still closed to the Negro. So he spends more of his money for the things that are available to him, often for items that are considered luxuries. Another trait of the Negro market is the fact that it is a pre-sold market. We know that the Negro buys by brand, and he buys the brands that he knows something about. Where does the Negro buyer get this information? We know that Negro customers are turning more and more to the publications that are tailored specifically to their needs, that give them the news and the information that they want to read about. Many leading businessmen and companies already know this. That's why so many of them are taking this direct, sure route of reaching the Negro customer. The vice president of advertising of the Gruen Watch Company, for example, says this.
In many important cities throughout the United States, Negroes are important customers of the credit jeweler. Therefore, it seemed that Ebony magazine would be a very important advertising medium for us. We would say it was very well received, and from our viewpoint, a very successful campaign.
From the Remington Rand Company comes this statement.
Our records show that advertising in ebony has been effective in many ways. As all good advertising should, it has built a terrific amount of goodwill and has brought a volume of sales and sales inquiries.
A representative of the Alaga Syrup Company makes this statement.
Because of Alaga's regard for the influence of ebony in the Negro market, advertising space was doubled. Alaga's long experience in selling to Negroes now takes the most direct route to its best customers, reaching ebony's 2.5 million audience in every issue.
And here are the statements of still other business leaders.
Yes, many business leaders are discovering the most direct and most efficient way of reaching the new Negro market. Look here at the results of the same advertisement in two different publications, Ebony and another general magazine. You can see that proportionately, more men and women read the ad in Ebony than the one in the other magazine. And they did a better job of remembering it, too. A greater percentage of readers noted, associated, and remembered the ad in Ebony. But now, wait a minute. If the Negro market is so big and easy to reach, why aren't more companies going out after it? Well, often because of the feeling that there's something entirely different, unusual about selling to the Negro. But is it really so different? What do salesmen say? The successful salesmen who do a good job of selling in Negro communities. How do you go about getting the order?
How do I get the order? Well, to tell you the truth, I don't do anything. Anything different, that is. I've been calling on these accounts long enough to know that the Negro just wants to be treated like everybody else. No matter who you're calling on, a little friendliness and courtesy help a lot. Naturally, anybody resents being patronized or talked down to. So I usually call a man Mr. Brown, Mr. Smith, or Mr. whatever his name is, until he tells me to call him by his first name. And of course, I always stick to business. I stay away from talk about race or religion or politics. That goes for talk about Negro celebrities, too. You know, this business about what good prize fighters and singers the Negroes are. Who cares? When a guy's in business, no matter what color his skin is, he's interested in making a living, in making money. That's uppermost in his mind. I guess maybe what I'm saying is that I try to help any way I can, sometimes with displays or ad materials, or an idea once in a while. The important thing is that if it helps push sales for the dealer, it helps push them for me, too.
Handle the Negro account just like any of your others. Don't patronize. Stick to business. Get interested in the account. Pitch in and help any way you can. Sounds like pretty good sales advice. That's the secret of selling the Negro. Well, how about it? What do you think of this new market? It can open new outlets for you and for everybody who sells goods or services. It's still possible to get in on the ground floor when this market is just beginning to grow and to expand. The facts and the figures that we see here are just a small sample of what they promise to be next year and the years after that. Yes, here are men and women with money to spend, and they spend it for exactly the same things as you and I and everyone else. They buy almost every type of product and service that you have to offer, and they can be reached like everyone else through publications that appeal to their interests and desires, that deliver the kind of loyal readership that can be proved both in surveys and in down-to-earth sales. Here is a ready-made market waiting to be asked to buy. Here are millions of customers for what you have to sell. Customers with $15 billion to spend.
So that's the conclusion of the video, How to Sell a Negro, 1954, United States Department of Commerce. All the information is there. You can actually go look up the video on YouTube yourself if you ever want to just check it out or pass it on. As a matter of fact, I'll link it in the description. But we need to really, as a collective and as a people, as Americans, especially Black Americans, we need to sit down and we need to start having some hard conversations, because really listen to the numbers and what was said during this documentary. If in 1954, if 3 out of 4 every Black households was owned by the families in the land that the homes were on, that meant that 70% of the foundational Black American population owned their land in 1954. Segregation was in 1964. 1965 was the Immigration Act. Does no one see a correlation there? Because after 1965, all the federal funding that used to be put into all of American communities for American people, Black and white alike, a lot of that started to get redirected and the wealth redistributed to people who never even paid into the system. And until this day right now, we are still going through that, because we just watched as the last 4 years as old Papa Sleepy Joe and Mama La Kamala left the southern border wide open, and over a 4-year period, we got flooded with 25 plus million illegal immigrants. A majority of them who claimed asylum, which means under asylum, they got a temporary Social Security number, which granted them housing, food benefits, medical benefits, and everything else that they qualified for. Not to mention the naturalized citizens that are under color of law listed as racially white. Yet because of their phenotype, when they fill out for programs and because they're immigrants, they still get minority status. So imagine having white privilege as an immigrant minority and being able to get funds out of both cookie jars, while Black and white Americans alike foot the fucking bill but get fucked in the process. And instead of us fixing it, we're fighting with one another. Really let that sink in. We're fighting with one another instead of removing the elected officials who are not doing their jobs and allowing these things to happen. Even if it takes removal of the individuals who are now defrauding the system. We're mad at the people for trying to remove the individuals for defrauding the system that we built and we pay for, as they take advantage of and tell us that we have no culture. When since they have arrived and the Democrats have systematically created legislation to remove funding from our communities to make their lives better, we went from 75% of our population having home ownership to what? But on that note, I'm going to sign out. And we're going to tap back in the Plantation Studio with your man's Petty Murphy. And always remember, realize, and transparency forces accountability. Please, my people, I implore you, y'all keep your eyes to the stars and keep that head on a swivel, because it's dirty, dangerous game they playing. And this is beyond just some type of physical warfare. This is definitely spiritual, because that veil's got us blind to what's actually going on. And we're worried about the wrong boogeyman. And the boogeyman that they gave you was given to you by the same people that Brother Malcolm warned you about. Malcolm said before they took him up off this rock, there are white people who want to help you, but you'll never hear them go by the term liberal. Y'all be safe out there, man. Thank you, Nap Turner, for that great expose. Well, we're reporting to you again live here from Okada News Network, and it is your man about town, Petty Murphy. Now, normally I'd have some slick shit to say, but I just can't think of anything. But if there's one thing I do want to let everyone out there know, If in 1954 our GDP was 15 billion, and here in 2025, there's a certain segment of the population that says that they deserve this and it is their homeland because they have all the culture and we don't. And their GDP is roughly at 8 billion. And we're talking, 74 years later. Well, as they say, that's the tale of the tale. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be signing out. We all ask you again to tune in for our future shows, and it is your man about town, Petty Murphy, reporting to you live from the back of the classroom here at Okada News Network.